Marlins take the series against the Orioles, but they can't get the sweep. However, they gave them a big scare in Game 3, coming all the way back from 6-0 down. They took it to extras, but couldn't quite get it done. The standout plays from Jazz Chisholm Jr. in center field, both times laying fully out. Jazz is playing out of his mind right now. Xavier Edwards continues to play out of his mind. The bullpen continues to play out of its mind. Unfortunately, the starting pitchers not quite matching that. However, this is a fun group at this point, competing with teams that are in the postseason, or at least in the postseason hunt. There's tons to get into. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins on a Thursday evening. And the game has already been played, a 5:10 p.m. UK time start. Absolutely glorious. I'm your host, Peter Pratt, of course. Hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK. This is your team every day, of course. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's available free and everywhere as well. And there's a YouTube channel to boot. Hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel as well. Join me in the comments and let me know your thoughts, particularly on the way that this Marlins team is performing after the All-Star break. I mean, they struggled. They limped into this All-Star break. It was like they were desperate for it. The starting pitching was like struggles. Bullpen asked to do all of the heavy lifting. But they've come out of this All-Star break on fire. So there's tons to get into here. They look like the 2023 Marlins, but it is still 2024. Jazz Chisholm Jr. continues to put up highlight reel plays, this time in the outfield. Tons to get into here, guys. This episode, though, is sponsored by our good friends over at Booking.com. Booking.yeah. And the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. You have to call it, guys. What a series win for the Marlins there against the Orioles. The Orioles, offensively, I'd say in particular, have got just so many options, so many studs everywhere. They got too much talent. Too much talent. The funny thing is, Game 3 in particular kind of highlighted where there's an obvious match, no doubt about it, for the Orioles right now. In that, listen, Corbin Burns was doing Corbin Burns things, no doubt. Very Corbin Burns-like. However, when they turn the game over to the bullpen, what was at that point? It was probably a 5-run lead, a 4-run lead, whatever it may be. You've only got to cover an inning and a bit, and the Marlins string together a ton of action. Next thing is, it's in extras. It looked like the bullpen from the Marlins in April, frankly, from the Orioles, and so it certainly highlighted to me that the Orioles need some bullpen help. No doubt about it. And so, listen, there's tons of teams, that are likely to sell, but really, like, the Marlins are holding all of the aces right now from a bullpen perspective anyway. Starting pitching would have been interesting too. Like, just imagine for this deadline if Jesus Luzardo wasn't hurt, Braxton Garrett wasn't hurt, Sandy wasn't. I mean, who knows? Like, who knows how deep they would have gone with some of these moves, but particularly Luzardo. If you think about it now, you had a Luzardo to move. Jazz, they were entertaining offers on. Tanner Scott, the rest of the bullpen. This could have been the most active deadline ever from a sell-off team. I don't really know. It could have been absolutely wild. I mean, even, without the starting pitching aspects, Peter Bendix has got so much on in the next, 6 days. So much on. So he is going to be one of the busiest guys around. There's a lot of teams going to be calling. And we saw it again in this series, the way a Marlins team struggling a little bit with their starting pitching for obvious reasons. Rodrigo Munoz was, there was a lot of IKEA specials, it's fair to say today. And that's been, Rodrigo Munoz's problem. We saw a stereotypical line, I would say, from Edward Cabrera yesterday. I watched some of those innings live. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's the 24th of July. The Marlins are completely dead. Eddie Cabrera is going for the Marlins. It's after midnight. And for some reason, I'm tuning in to watch live Eddie Cabrera innings. Why? Why am I doing this? I don't even know. But it's the Marlins, and I love the Marlins, and I love Eddie Cabrera, really. I want him to be good. I want Eddie Cabrera to be good. I'd love him to be good. But every single time, Eddie Cabrera, he looks like a stud for a few innings, and then there's one blow-up inning, and it happens every time. What is it? Why does this keep happening? I don't know. Does he get tired? Is it mental? Something happens where the game, a lack of confidence all of a sudden, like on the mound, you walk the first guy and all of a sudden the head starts to scramble and you just can't throw strikes anymore. I don't know. But, the point I was trying to make was they haven't got much out of the starting pitching in terms of quality and depth. But the offense has been perky. I'm going to describe it as that. I think 6 runs in all of the 3 games, which they definitely haven't done this year. Don't know when the last time they did that. But again, it comes down to it. This bullpen just will take over a game and will control a game, and it doesn't matter who you go to. Like, everyone is chipping in. No Park this evening, no Tanner Scott, but there's other guys out there. I mean, Declan Cronin, man, oh man, and he must be leading the bullpen by WAR at this point. I mean, it's probably just down to the fact that he's pitched so many innings and multi-inning efforts and high leverage spots, you name it. But I think Declan Cronin's probably, by WAR being the best reliever, which kind of does, call into question the legitimacy in some ways of WAR and its way of calculating value. No doubt Declan Cronin's been fine. He's been good. But Tanner Scott's the best reliever in the game. So, I'll leave you with that. Big news across the game today, just before I hit record on this episode, actually, where the A's stud closer, the A's, they're not in the mix this year. But Mason Miller, is that his name? Mason Miller from the A's, he's been an absolute sensation this year. He's gone on to the IL. By all accounts, he's broken one of his fingers, punching a padded bench or something, a masseur's table. I don't know. He's punching something that had a pad on it, broke his hand, not his pitching hand, but still broke his finger. He's going on the IL. So, bad news for the A's, maybe. Bad news for Miller specifically. But maybe good news for the Marlins, where if the A's were indeed considering moving this guy, and he'd be one of the best guys out there, clearly, multiple years of control, different situation to Tanner Scott. But that's just another reliever, high leverage guy off the board right now in some ways. Maybe you still trade for him and think, it's his non-pitching hand. Just put the glove on it, big lad, and start throwing, start throwing gas. It's all good. But in theory, let's assume that he's untradeable at this point. It's another guy off the board. Again, it comes back and really helps the Marlins where, again, it's not just Tanner Scott. It's the other guys that are available too, where, you go, okay, we really like Miller. Okay, no, we're going to drop down. Who else can we get? Okay, JT Chagua. Okay, let's go after him. Tanner Scott we know, but Puck, Chagua, Nardi, Cronin, Fauché, Brazaban. There's just so many names, and this pen is absolutely clicking at exactly the right time. It's insane. This is 2023 Marlins. This series has been 2023 Marlins, particularly Game 3. They're dead and buried. They get a paper cut inning. They piece it together. The bullpen holds. They make it interesting. A bit of voodoo happens. Bit of a misplay by Gunnar Henderson. 2023 Marlins reappeared this evening. It was great to see. I was out there cutting the grass. I went and started cutting the grass in the 7th inning. I thought, this game's cooked. We're in 24. The game's cooked. I then checked back in and I was like, there's a rally happening. Let's put the mower down and let's get in there. Nevertheless, great to see. I want to talk about Skip Schumacher straight after this because Skip, after yesterday's game, I loved his post-game presser. Check it out if you haven't. He talked about Xavier Edwards in there, but he also multiple times held his hands up and said, I messed up there. The game got too quick for me. I was too busy thinking about this and I missed that opportunity. I should have got Eddie Cabrera out of there. I was too busy thinking about something else, matchups, lanes, pockets, hitters. I love Skip's language. I love the way he talks about the game. I can sit and listen to him all the time, like pockets, lanes, whatever it might be. But he then holds his hands up, accountable. He's always accountable. Everyone's accountable. That's the culture that he drives. Talking about that yesterday with Jeremiah about Chisholm Jr. And so we're going to carry on that conversation shortly. But before we do that, let's firstly let you know about our good friends over at SupplyHouse. Yes, sir. And let's start that again. You can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. The easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts for over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? No problem. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every single time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. And guys, this episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Yes, sir. And Game Time is going to be needed as we get into summer for tickets, guys. You know it. And Game Time is that authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time, it takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Guys, this is a bugbear for me. I don't like those surprise fees at checkout. You find your tickets, you like the price, you get to checkout, and all of a sudden, fees for this, fees for that, and you think, holy smokes, what's going on here? Game Time, you can toggle this feature for all-in pricing. You can see the total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. I'm also interested in the view from the seat. When I'm finding the seat, I've got my all-in price. I want to see that view. With Game Time, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and their lowest price guarantee, which means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same seat in the same row for less. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Marlins, guys. Thursday, the 25th of July. We are inching closer to the trade deadline. I won't apologize because this content all week, through the weekend, etc., will be deadline heavy. This is the Marlins season. This next week, under a week, is the Marlins year. This is what it boils down to. Success of the 2024 campaign will be measured by what happened in early May and in this week. That is how success will be measured. How successful was the Urias trade? How successful is the Tanner Scott trade? The Josh Bell trade? Whatever relievers are moved. The Tanner Scott trade, I think it's nailed on that Tanner Scott will be moved. Any other relievers? The Chisholm Jr. trade, if indeed that happens, we'll wait to see. But this next few days will define the 2024 campaign. And we won't know the answer to it until 2026, 2027, 2028, 29, 30, whatever the number may be. we won't have an answer about how successful the Marlins have been. But at some point, we will reflect on this week, look back, and consider, did Bendix nail it? Was it middle of the road? Or did he miss the mark? Who knows? On paper, we're going to see some trades happen. We're going to scroll to prospect lists. We're going to go to top prospects and go, okay, he's the 6th prospect. 19. He's been hitting 280 in low A. Keith Law says he's good. What a win for the Marlins. In reality, it's going to take a long time to know. Like the Arias deal, we won't really be able to tell until Dylan Head, is further along in his development. We won't. And it's the same for the draft, particularly the guys they took in the top 2 rounds, high school guys. This is a long-term plan here. So it's going to be a fun week. If there's a trade that drops, and I expect there will be at least 4, I think there could be even more than that. I think there could be 4 relievers gone, to be honest with you. We'll wait and see. So when there's a deal, there'll be a pod, an emergency pod, breaking it down as best I can. I have to hold my hands up. I'm not a major prospect guy, but I'll give you my sense of what I'm seeing. And equally, Twitter will be helping me to understand that. And we'll be working out, is this a good deal? Is it a bad deal? What are the Marlins seeing here? What are they getting back? How does it compare to other deals? We'll wait and see. It's going to be a fun week, no doubt about it. So make sure you hit subscribe on the pod, obviously on YouTube as well. As I was talking about, Skip Schumacher, his post-game presser yesterday after the Wednesday game, so the victory, I loved it, by the way. The accountability. Skip multiple times called it out. I botched it. I botched the situation. It was particularly around the Andrew Nardi situation. He got a little bit carried away, etc., etc. But I love that from Skip. I absolutely love it. What he also talked about was Xavier Edwards and the impact he's made. And I thought it was a great quote. I knew he could hit, but I didn't think he'd hit this much or this good. Xavier Edwards has been unreal. Unreal. I remember when he burst on the scene last year. And it was clear that there was a similar profile guy to Luis Arias there. I remember I look back on my tweets. I was like, okay, this is the beauty of tweets and also this show where everything's on tape, right? There's no hiding place. You keep the receipts. You keep the receipts. I remember looking and calling it out. This is Arias 2.0. And so I'm not stunned that we're seeing this from Xavier Edwards at all. And frankly, this is, I don't think it's quite Luis Arias like. I mean, Arias is a back-to-back batting champ. He's done it multiple years in a row for the whole season. So we'll wait to see. But we have a player here in Xavier Edwards that has a similar bat profile. And from what we're seeing defensively, and this again, Skip spoke about within this question, which I thought was really interesting. He said, Xavier Edwards, we're talking about his bat. We're talking about the on-base skills. What aren't we talking about? We're not talking about Xavier Edwards' shortstop defense. And that's a good thing. It means that Xavier Edwards is making the routine plays at shortstop. There'll always be plays that, don't quite go your way, that are like, 20% chances. We're going to talk about some of them from Jazz from today. But what he did say, and I thought it was a good point, well made. We're not talking at all at the moment about Xavier Edwards' defense, which was like Joey Wendell last year, where we didn't talk about Wendell's defense. It was just, and you look back and you went, man, Wendell was good at shortstop there by the numbers. I'm not saying that, Xavier's maybe quite at that level yet. I don't know. Maybe he is. But for certain, the bat plays, and we know it. The on-base skills, they play. His eye is a lot better than Arias's, to be honest. Like, Arias's bat-to-ball skills, for me, still number one in the game, maybe. But Xavier Edwards definitely takes a walk more than Arias does. No doubt. The defense is definitely better. He's younger. He's cheaper. This is the prototypical move that you would make, right? Where if it was the Rays, what would you do? You'd move Arias because you've already got Xavier Edwards already, and then you stock the farm again. and the conveyor belt works. The problem with that situation for the Marlins right now, in my opinion, is Xavier Edwards has already sat there. It's got nothing to do with Bendix. But in other positions, so let's think about center field, for example. You move Jazz Chisholm Jr. The expectation is you're probably going to see a drop-off in center field in terms of production. Maybe that's not true. I mean, maybe that's unfair to Victor Mesa Jr. Maybe that's unfair to Dane Myers. We won't know for Dane Myers for this year. But, that's the Rays model. Guys get into year 2 of ARB. You look to move them. And you look to have someone ready on league minimum to take that role. That's the methodology. That's the business plan. However, because the way the farm's been managed, there's going to be a gap in between right now. There's a lag. There's going to be a lag because the layers of talent don't really exist at this point. You move Tanner Scott and 4 relievers. What's your pen going to be like? Don't know. You move Luzardo. Maybe you move Trevor Rogers at the deadline. What's your rotation looking like next year? Don't know. I mean, Yuri Perez, in my opinion, won't pitch next year. I know he may be back at some point, but considering I think it's going to be another tank job next year, then the Marlins, I think we're just going to sit on Yuri, let him rehab. I don't think we're going to see Yuri Perez. We've already seen what they did with Max Meyer. They want that extra year of club control. They don't want to burn a year of club control in a tank job year. It's going to be a tank job year. I want to talk about Jazz Chisholm Jr. And I also want to talk about, primarily Jazz Chisholm Jr. because that outfield play today was incredible from Jazz. 2 plays. The first one, I didn't think the first one could be bettered, but in some ways the second one was just as impressive. So talk about Jazz, his defensive play, his overall play in this series against the Orioles. Equally, I want to briefly touch on something he mentioned in terms of his position, where he feels or where he wants to play defensively, which was talked about a few days back. Before we do that, firstly, let's let you know about our good friends over at Booking.com. Yes, sir. And guys, this episode of Locked on Marlins is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.ie, and with summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games. I mean, who's headed off to Milwaukee now? Let me know. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. And with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. Booking.com is always my go-to app for travel, every single time. Search by location, price, what you're looking for is where I always go. And if you're looking for hotels right next to the Brewers ballpark, Booking.com could be the one for you. So from hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. And guys, this episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks, it is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, baby. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into 1,000. And they have promos. Yes, they do. PrizePicks has got you covered with promos this week and every week, from lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to helping your lineup hit or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. That's tomorrow, guys. So get your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup tomorrow on Friday via PrizePicks. So simply download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Welcome back to Locked On Marlins, guys. Final brief segment here. I want to talk about Jazz Chisholm Jr. in center field specifically. Boy, oh boy, if you haven't seen the game today. I mean, it was an early one, so I know you may not have been able to catch it. It was, 10 past 12, 10 p.m. Eastern start. Maybe you're in work. I don't know. For me, 5:10 p.m. Optimal timing. Game on. Cracked the beer, not going to lie. Cut the grass in between. My daughter came down. She sat down. She looked up and it was 6-0. She just looked over me and went, oh. She called it right. I know she was expecting the 24 Marlins and it was going to be, a massacre in this one. But we got what we got. But there was 2 plays from Jazz Chisholm Jr. in center field specifically. Unreal. The first one, I think the catch probability, it talked about on the broadcast, was 15%. 1-5. 15% for Jazz Chisholm Jr. It was to left center. It was drilled. It was a warning track, full stretch job. And it was actually going as well behind. Like the dive wasn't a straight dive. It was like, going backwards. And it was an unreal grab. A bit later in the game then, to the other side. Not quite as deep. So Jazz had to kind of come forward, track it, but full gasolina, full stretch. I think the first one was harder. I haven't seen the probability for the second one, but personally, that first one was unreal. Spoke about it. It's one of the best outfield catches, center field catches I think I've ever seen, not just by a Marlin, but just ever. Granted, I haven't followed baseball for a long time, but an unreal grab. I do wonder where that sits. Like, I guess with catch probabilities, there's a way to look back and go, how does that rank in terms of catch probabilities from center fields in this season for Jazz, for forever for the Marlins? Like, I don't know. I mean, a 15% catch probability is super low. And for me, it just continues to emphasize just from Jazz, he's just doing it all at the moment. He's piecing everything together in his game. The outfield glove, the outfield arm, the base running. I mean, at one point today, he dropped the bunt. Dropping the bunt, it wasn't successful. He did get the runner over, so it wasn't like a super successful, like as in a bunt hit. But yeah, he dropped it down, and I think he obviously felt it was a bit of a tough matchup against Burns. Got the runner over, but like Jazz is doing everything right now. He really is. The interesting bit from Craig Mish yesterday that caught my eye when he was, asked a follow-up question or whatever it might be, he said about Jazz that it feels like the Marlins. We think back to earlier in the year, Jazz won't be moved this deadline. He won't be moved. We then get to a point a few weeks back. Craig then reports, actually, the Marlins are entertaining offers now on Jazz this deadline. He then goes on a tear, and all of a sudden now Craig's saying, maybe the Marlins are, slightly less inclined to move him. I don't really know why. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me, where if you entertain offers and then the guy starts to put on a clinic, in some ways, that's a good thing, right? But I guess the only way to look at that on the flip side is to think, are they not getting the offers? Again, Craig reporting the offers, prospect conversations, like, again, talking about the Pirates, spoke about it a few days back, Tamar Johnson not in play. I mean, if these guys aren't in play, then the Marlins should absolutely not move Jazz now. Because if they're not willing to part with a 75th overall prospect. A prospect, by the way. 75th overall prospect. I think he's 19, done nothing, could be nothing, for 2.5 years of Jazz Chisholm Jr., who's right now playing like a top 50 player in Major League Baseball, has an OPS league-wide within the top 75. Like, I get it. People want to look at WAR and they want to look at the injury history. But Jazz right now is playing like a top 50 dude. He's playing like a superstar right now. I mean, I'd love for him to be with the Marlins and continue playing. But if that type of guy, upside, however you want to look at it, I mean, it isn't just upside, right? We're seeing it. We're seeing this production right now to this level. And he's impacting the game day in, day out. If that type of profile for 2 and a bit years, cheap as well, in the grand scheme, can't get you a top 75 prospect in Tamar Johnson, then I'm like the Marlins. I'm like Peter Bendix. It's like, let's not bother. If there's not a market for him at this point, then a bit like, maybe it's a bit like trading Sandy now. Because, and you go, well, you never trade Sandy now. He needs to be healthy. When he's healthy and humming again, then maybe you move him. Maybe for the Marlins, what they actually need to do this year is just keep hold of Jazz. Full year with the Marlins. Injury problems, yeah, they've surfaced before. But last year, the injury problem was primarily because he stubbed a toe on a concrete block that the Marlins left there in left field. It's a freak accident on that. So maybe for the Marlins right now, I mean, is Jazz's value going to depreciate that much from the deadline to the offseason? I don't think so. Just imagine if Jazz keeps this rolling. Just imagine if in a dead season for the Marlins, Jazz Chisholm Jr. can put up career numbers in career games, career at-bats, be totally professional about it, fully endorsed by Skip Schumacher, fully endorsed by his peers, his teammates, the fans. Maybe that's the way the Marlins should approach this. Not try to move him now if there's no market. But frankly, I'm not listening to anything the media is really saying. Like, it's all media talk. No, I haven't heard any GM say anything directly about Jazz Chisholm Jr. I've heard Craig talk about it, and he'd be patched into it. But the Marlins are entertaining offers. I think if the offer isn't there, I think they're going to stand pat, and they should do. There's no need to move Jazz right now. Nevertheless, stunning outfield play today. Stunning series for Jazz. Paul Severino on the broadcast talking about it a lot, saying, is this the most complete series Jazz has ever put together? I mean, it's hard to answer that because he's played a lot of series, and I'm sure he's been on fire at other times. But considering all of the combined plays, it has to be right up there. And with Paul Severino on that, the timing's very interesting. Very, very interesting. And what we're seeing across the league as well is injuries are starting to pile up. Like everywhere I look, like all of a sudden Christian Yelich is down. He might be out for the year. Yeah, Mason Miller, big time, reliever. He's out. Tons of teams struggling with injuries. I mean, the Marlins, their rotation's been decimated all season, obviously. So, listen, I've got zero compassion for teams that are now kind of going, hey, loads of injuries piled up. Like, everyone gets injuries. It's the way it goes. So, but it's, they seem to be occurring. That creates opportunity for the Marlins, creates opportunity for Bendix, creates opportunity for the Marlins to swing some deals for teams that need it. Because when I look at it, there's teams that are like in the hunt, and that's starting to set in the NL in particular. That's starting to become obvious who's in the hunt, who's truly in the hunt. Equally, who's falling backwards. The Atlanta Braves are in a real pickle right now. I know they've lost Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. Fried's on the IL, Albies on the IL as well. So like they're dealing with injuries, right? But they have been in free fall. They are in trouble. I'm telling you, if the Bravos don't do anything drastic. And they're a team led by a GM that is a specialist in drastic situations. But if they don't do anything drastic, there's a chance here that somehow the Atlanta Braves, after being the dominant team in the NL in the regular season, somehow miss the expanded wildcard situation. They laughed at the Marlins last year. Oh, this is a cupcake. They laughed at them in 2020. What happens if the Braves miss the playoffs this year? Absolute scenes on that one, no doubt about it. But I called it at the start of the year. Braves, amazing 1-11. 1-9, however you want to phrase it. You know what I'm saying. Starters, amazing. Depth issues. We've seen that. They have got depth issues. They've got injuries to big players, no doubt. But they have depth issues. Double A, let's see what he can do. I'm wondering if the Marlins and Braves hook up for anything. The sense I get from Craig and what he's been tweeting about is it's unlikely that Marlins will look to do business with the Bravos, so wait to see. But as I've already mentioned, Jazz to the Braves, I think, would be a sexy fit, although the most painful fit as fans, no doubt about it. Guys, that's been Locked on Marlins for Thursday, the 25th of July. I'm back tomorrow. Smoking Joe Brazzaro is on the show. We'll be no doubt talking about deadline. Anything can happen at any time, guys. So, there could be emergency podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed. I look forward to seeing you soon.